We do have Tom and Gary here for this afternoon. If you have questions for them, by all means, ask them. In addition, I did promise you that I was going to run through my slides on the kit that you have in your hands. Now, I can do that now, or I can do that tomorrow morning. Looks like now is pretty much what everybody wants. Okay. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. All right. Well, I'll be here if you'll be here. Don't you love watching people try to use them and they can't hardly even see it? All right, let's see. Is this it? Yes. All right. As I said earlier, the file system kit that you have in your hand is a preliminary kit. You have a fair amount of documentation in one fairly rough form or another, and I'll go through that documentation, try to point you to some support mechanisms you can use to help you in your quest to build a file system. As I say, this is a preliminary kit. We expect that we're going to update it in approximately 6 months, and that's a very approximate number. That's predicated upon getting some more sample code written and getting some more documents written. As things become available and they're worth releasing to people, we'll do that. We will always try to piggyback them on top of some other release unless it makes sense to release them by themselves. Our plans at this time are that the file system kit will ultimately become a piece of the DDK, so that if you want to write a device driver, you remember Darryl talking about FSDs versus DDs, and this will just become a part of the device driver kit. We don't actually expect that it will ever install as anything other than an optional piece of the device driver kit. When you do a custom installation, it's not probably something that people want to take up. The 5,000 device driver kit owners out there probably don't want to take up space on their disks for the things they need, file systems. So it'll be an optional piece, meaning that you'll just install it as an optional piece. Like I said, I'll talk about the documentation. I'll go through the files that are in kit, talk about installation, and finally about support. Everybody who's here will get an update. Yeah, and I'll track that and make sure everybody gets it. This is a small enough group that at least the preliminary kits, until we actually roll it into the device driver kit, I don't anticipate any problems keeping track of all of you. That could change, of course, but I don't anticipate problems with that. In the file system kit, there's one header file that is the header file, and that's NTFSDevCon'94, surprisingly enough. Most file systems probably won't need to do anything else because it includes the pieces that you need. It includes the cache manager APIs. It includes all of that stuff, so that you'll find there are about half a dozen header files that layer on top of the device driver kit you already have that allow you to do IFS work. We're not going to promise you at this point in time that every interface will stay unchanged, but the majority of them will. It's pain for us to change them. I mean, we have, 8 file systems that use these APIs, so we change them. We have to do a lot of changing internally. But at this point, we're not going to promise that every interface is going to stay unchanged. However, I'm going to talk about support mechanisms here in a minute or two, and it's going to behoove you to stay in touch with us if you're in active development of a file system. Again, this is a very low volume thing. There's 175 of you here today, maybe 200, and that's the amount of active development that we actually expect to be occurring in the world on file systems for Windows NT. I'll be very surprised if it goes higher than that. Because we didn't get to documenting these pieces of the things you need to know for file systems, we've just included what are basically the design specs that are current for the Windows networking APIs, the multi-user provider documentation, and the multi-provider router documentation. And Chuck Chan will talk in some detail about these on Thursday. As I said, we're working on more documentation. In addition, the videotapes of this conference will be sent to everybody who's here today. We will make videotapes. It's a part of the conference cost that we will send you videotapes. That's more. We were discussing this when we put together this conference, knowing that it's a preliminary conference. We were discussing how we could add value, and one of those we can add value is give everybody a copy of videotapes. It's not going to be super cheap, but then it's good value for your money, I think. CDFS in its entirety is on the file system kit. The raw file system, which is a very basic read-write file system, it doesn't use the cache manager, is on the kit. It's unfortunate that I didn't get my filter driver finished in time to go on this kit, but we do have a file system filter driver I'll be shipping out in the near future that would have been a part of this kit if I'd gotten it finished in time. We're working on what we can provide in terms of other file system examples. Installation's about as simple as it gets. The floppy you have actually has everything you need on it to start doing file system development. Xcopy it over and install DDK. And xcopy/s/v over the installed DDK. And you can immediately see down to DDK /source CDFS and build CDFS. And I've done this. I verified that it works. Everything's there. Then you can start dissecting CDFS and see how CDFS does things. And then start really getting into it. It does a little bit about SKs and DDKs with 3.5 of NT. As you've all probably noticed, or maybe you haven't, with 3.5, the SDK is not include compilers, nor is the DDK. Alpha does because Visual C++ is not yet there for the alpha, but with the Intel, there are no compilers in the SDK. The device driver kit is intended to be installed over SDK. So the device driver kit doesn't work properly unless you have an SDK already installed in your system. Likewise, the IFS kit is built to be installed over the device kit. So we're layered here. Okay. The question is, if you have Visual C installed, do you still need to install the SDK? Yes. A lot of the header files are replicated, but there are some. Remember, Visual C++ 2.0 is a Win32 product. It's not a Windows NT product per se. It's so that it has a future beyond just Windows NT. So, if that's not a leading remark, I don't know what is. I'm sorry.
You have to install Visual C++ first or the SDK first?
The question is, if you have to install Visual C++ first or the SDK first. I've actually installed it both ways, and I don't notice that it makes any real difference. So, yeah, you do have to install both, but I haven't noticed that it makes any difference. Visual C++, I personally have never written any user mode code for Windows NT ever, and with any luck, I'll keep that going. So Visual C++ by itself is not really terribly interesting to me. I did once let it build me a Olay shell just to try it out, but it wasn't interesting when I was done because you can see what it does. I like code that you can't see. It's a personal thing. We do intend to provide support for people doing file system development. We have a lot of mechanisms for providing support. We're instituting a peer support forum on CompuServe that Microsoft does not do support over CompuServe. This will be support by people who are your peers. But if you want to go up there and whine about file systems or ask questions that you want answered, you can do this. We don't have this forum in place yet. It'll be in place in the next probably week or so. And when it's in place, I'll send you all mail and let you know about it. We're looking for someone to sponsor an internet mailing list. It's, again, a peer support sort of thing. Atria has ntdev at atria.com. Something similar to that would be a very useful thing. We're not going to sponsor that primarily because we don't have any Unix machines we can run listserv on at Microsoft, and we don't have listserv ported to Windows NT yet. In the future, we will. somebody's going to do it. Not necessarily us, but somebody's going to do it. And maybe we'll pull that mailing list into a Microsoft machine. But looking for a sponsor for an internet mailing list, we think that would be interesting to all of you. I think pretty much everybody here is on the internet or very close to on the internet. Finally, Product Support Services, PSS, has committed to provide support. We're still in the details of setting this up, but they've committed to provide support for people doing file systems on Windows NT through the normal paid support mechanisms. There is an 800 number. At the risk of sounding like a commercial, there's an 800 number you call to set up that support. It's 1-800-936-3500. And there's support mechanisms for doing that. Okay, and that's the standard, buy a 10-pack, call up PSS, they answer your question, sort of thing. That's the question is that included? Is support for that included in the MSDN stuff? Right now, MSDN, this is not a part of MSDN, and if you look at the fine print in MSDN in your MSDN documentation, you'll see that the MSDN 10-pack that you get with Level 2 is intended for things that are on the MSDN. So if you were to call up and ask questions about Visual C++ using your MSDN 10-pack, you'd find out that they wouldn't answer questions because it's not on the MSDN pack. So I didn't make rules, but that they have a circuitous sort of logic to them. Another question?
About Premier support? Will they support it?
That's one of the things that we're still setting up. I don't know what they're going to do on Premier support. In the process of setting up support file systems, we discussed actually the concept of having people get support for file systems. Okay, Mark says yes, they will support it. Okay, so yes, Premier Support will support it. That was easy. We actually discussed, to continue my thought, we actually discussed the prospect of having people not get support on file systems unless they have Premier support. And we blew that away pretty quickly. So the PSS people ran screaming from that idea, mostly because of all of the freight that goes with Premier support, 4-hour turnaround on questions, that sort of thing. So they will be supporting it for existing Premier support customers, though. Yeah. Yes.
Regarding the future operating systems and so on, such as Windows 95, now we know Windows 95 has full Win32 and all that. Are the IFSs, which I believe Windows 95 supports also, are they compatible?
The question is the Windows 95 IFS interface compatible with Windows NTs? No. That's a very easy, very easy to answer question. No, they are not. Again, you're asking me the same question as people ask when they start talking about device drivers being the same on the two platforms. Different mission, different constraints, different to the point that there are limited classes of drivers that we can make similar or the same on the two different platforms. But when we start talking about high-performance components like file systems, no. It's totally different interface. I mean, it's not. There's a lot of similarities, but it's Microsoft is making no commitment to make those things converge or diverge in the future. I mean, the goals that Windows 95 has are the Windows 95 goals, and they need to adhere. They need to be cleaved to for a 50 million user customer base. Windows NT has a set of goals that point at high-end servers and very high-performance workstations, and need to be true to that particular design center for Windows NT. So, that's a place we don't feel we don't feel there's good reason to map those two onto one another.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
I accept that. That's a
All right.
decision. However, in that case, are you redesigning NTFS completely, or as I bet you're probably are able to do is to reuse major portions of it for Windows 95, and therefore there must be some guidelines that we probably should follow ourselves in order to make that happen in our case. And in that case, could you make something like that available to us?
The question is, are we doing, if I can boil the question down, are we doing NTFS on Windows 95? The simple answer to that is no. Are we trying to put together a set of guidelines that will make a file system run on both operating systems? The answer to that again is no. We're not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Totally different thing.
But yeah. Okay. At the end of the question, okay. Windows 95 is Windows 95. Windows NT is Windows NT. And for file systems, that's the way it is for the near future. The question is there likely to be, if it's about support, is there likely to be any channel for support through solution providers? Or is the question really, is there solution provider specific support? Which one of those is the question? Either, okay. We haven't really thought that far ahead. We're not doing anything to make it happen. Now that you've suggested it, I'll send some mail around and see if we can make it happen. So, back there?
Yes, given that the file systems are going to be different between NT and Windows 95, will there be any sort of an FSDK and or a file systems developer conference or any similar type of program started or made available for Windows 95?
The question is, are we going to do this same sort of thing for Windows 95? We don't have any. Right. What Lee's point is that if you are a Chicago beta user right now and you get onto the CompuServe forums, there actually is an IFS spec for Windows 95 available today. Okay. Again, if you're I almost said the C word. If you're a Windows 95 beta tester, that's up there now. There will be some mechanism for getting out to everybody in the future. I don't know what that mechanism is going to be, and I don't have any visibility into that. Whether we'll repeat this sort of a conference for Windows 95, I don't have any plans to do that. The Windows 95 program management team doesn't have any plan to do that, but I'd be interested in showing hands to see who would be interested in having such a thing occur. Okay. Maybe a third of you. Okay.
Everybody in the other room.
Yeah, everybody in the other room. Okay, I'll buy that. Yeah. Okay. Pardon me? That would be useful if you're interested. If you're interested in a conference similar to this for Windows 95. I'll start a list, put it out here by the registration desk, and you can write it down, write your name down, and I'll make sure that the program manager for file systems on Windows 95 gets your name, so he can either contact you or keep you in the loop for upcoming conferences of this sort. I think you were.
Unviewable feature, and therefore the Windows 95 Windows 95 the IFS is as well.
The question is, actually two questions. Windows NT going to support FAT for the foreseeable future, and the other question is Windows 95 going to support FAT for the foreseeable future? There are no plans that I know of to drop FAT from any of our operating system products. I'd be very surprised, given the number of disks there are out there with FAT on them, if we were going to do something like that. It strikes me as a self-defeating sort of move. We have done a lot of things to bring the on-disk structures for the FATs close together. One of the things that you see in Windows NT 3.5 is support for long file names on FAT. That same support is coming out in Windows 95. and they're, again, complementary onto structures. They're the same on both sides. David Goebel, who'll be here tomorrow, can tell you a lot more about that.
Whatever file system comes out of Windows 95 for the next few months, that must be or should be visible on Windows NT if you're troubleshooting the
Right. The question is, if we put a file system in Windows 95, are we going to put it in Windows NT? I don't know of any work going on new file systems for Windows 95, so yeah. Since they're already new, sure, it's going into Windows NT. That's an easy commitment. I'm sorry.
They will be transferable.
That will always be visible between the two OSs. And you'll always be able to dual boot Windows 95 or Windows NT from a FAT volume. NTFS, again, there are no plans for NTFS on Windows 95. No plans that I know of to put HPFS on Windows 95. I don't expect that that's going to happen. Again, it's sort of a high-end use of Windows 95 that isn't envisioned as part of the, at least, original product plan for Windows 95. Art?
I thought we were getting a copy of Inside NTFS. What happened?
Well, you'll kill me for saying this. We did, in fact, the original plans were that you were going to get a copy of Inside NTFS with your kit. There was a bit of a snafu in the shipping. They went astray somewhere between here and Georgia. We have located a bunch more of them, and we'll be handing them out probably tomorrow morning. So yes, Inside NTFS was intended to be a piece of this, and we will hand it out. And the applause is all for you, Art. there was a question over here somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about the OFS. Is that going to be supported under Windows 95 or?
OFS supported under Windows 95. I have no plans that I know of to support OFS under Windows 95. It's not even it's down the road. Yeah, something that's clear halfway around the world in a sandy place. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Let me reform. Is the IFS spec for Windows 95 since it's on CompuServe, is it in such a shape that it will be included on the MSDN as soon as Windows 95 ships?
No, there are no plans to do that. There are no plans that I know to do that. That might happen, but there are no plans that I know of to do it. Again, it's a good suggestion. The question was, since there is an IFS spec for Windows 95, will we be putting it on MSDN sometime in the future? And my response was, there are no plans that I know of to do that. That doesn't mean I'm ruling it out, just there are no plans that I know of to do that.
Yes. Will file systems that we write today work for the future, foreseeable future, say 4.0 or Cairo or whatever it's called? Or will they require a complete rewrite or just minor changes? Or
the question is, will file systems we write today work for Cairo? Gary's response to that is, it depends on how fancy you get. I think that's...
It won't require a complete rewrite, though, or anything like that?
No, they won't require a complete rewrite. There are pieces of them that may, in fact, the APIs may change. We're going to endeavor to keep the APIs as close to their current form as we can. But again, as I said earlier, we're not going to commit to keeping the APIs identical across major revisions of the operating system. Part of the reason why I want to know who's writing file systems is so this limited group can get information about what's changing in time, change their file systems for releases of the OS.
I have a second, more generic question. Well, and this is actually for everybody. We're a backup vendor, and we use backup read, backup write API. Will all file systems automatically support that? Is this done at another level, or will we have to do specific support for alternate file systems?
We're discussing.
Yeah, I would say. Hello. I would say if file systems implement all of the APIs, then they should all work. In particular, I mean, most file systems are real straightforward and will just automatically work with backup APIs. Any file systems that are a little more complicated, like NTFS, that support streams, alternate streams or something, so long as they support the API that enumerates the streams, then they should all work. There's no black magic. The backup API uses standard APIs. And as far as your other question, I mean, it's hard to promise anything, but as far as Cairo goes, I think it's safe to say that it's not like there's any major changes planned for the Cairo timeframe in file system architecture. We got some big file system work of our own coming out, but there aren't any changes to the architecture plan.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I mean, there's OFS. That's the only new file system plan for Cairo. Yes. As far as I know, yes.
The HPFS plan, I believe, is up in the air.